guys, welcome back to Diaries of a Working Couple. I'm Jamie,
And I'm Chris.
and it's wonderful that you came back for another episode. Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we get started today, just wanted to catch you guys up. I had a bridal shower yesterday that I went to. Chris didn't come with.
I wasn't allowed.
Yeah, it was a no boys allowed kind of thing. But it was a lot of fun. A lot of my oldest friends is getting married in October, so we got to celebrate her, which was fun. But she's definitely not into any of the wedding things whatsoever. So I really think it was more of something for her mom and her sister to do versus something that she wanted to do.
She didn't want to have like a wedding with friends and stuff there.
Oh, she doesn't want to have a shower. She doesn't want to wear the white dress. She wants to elope or do a courthouse thing and call it a day.
Yeah, that works for some people.
He doesn't. He wants to have the full wedding.
Oh, he wants to have the wedding. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's like reverse of like typical situations.
It's not very common. I feel like guys are usually the ones that are like, I don't care, we can do whatever. And the girls are the ones who want the whole thing, but...
I wanted to have a wedding, but I don't know if I would have had as big of a wedding if, we didn't work on it together. Actually, you worked on most of it, but...
Yeah, it was mostly me. But you enjoyed it, though.
Oh, it was so much fun. I wouldn't change it for the world now, but, looking, well... When I was in the past, I wouldn't have guessed that it turned out that way.
Gotcha. But yeah, that's how she is. She does not want to do anything like that. But she is very excited for their honeymoon. They're doing St. Lucia's.
That's exciting. Sandals?
Yeah.
Nice.
And they're doing a lot. They're planning all their excursions and everything. So she's very excited for that part of it. That part of the wedding.
That's awesome.
The honeymoon part.
I love sandals. That is my type of vacationing. I know that you wanted to do something a little more adventurous for our honeymoon, but I think our honeymoon was perfect. I just wanted to lay on a beach and drink a ton of tropical drinks.
Very glad that you talked me out of doing what I wanted to do, because you were very correct in saying that we would need the time to like relax afterwards and just kind of unwind and just hang out at the beach, instead of I wanted to go to Italy and Spain and do like a tour of Europe, and that would have been way too much, especially after all of the planning and everything for the wedding. It was definitely worth it to just go and
you don't
chill.
Want to be on a schedule. Yeah,
no.
I mean, the wedding was already stressful. It was stressful for me a little bit, but it was definitely a lot more stressful for you because you made all the plans. And then to have to follow a schedule and, wake up at a certain time. And I did not think that would be relaxing enough for a honeymoon.
Yeah, no, you're very correct. And I honestly could always go for laying on a beach somewhere.
Also, we got married during COVID. So I don't know how the, Spain, Italy traveling would have been, compared to if we do it later on in life, when COVID is hopefully not a thing.
I mean, I don't think it's going to not be a thing ever. Like, I think we're always going to have COVID. It's always going to be around, but it's going to be one of those, kind of like the flu. Like, the flu was a huge pandemic literally over 100 years ago. And now we just get a flu shot every year, but it's not a huge, like, health concern. Like, every time November hits, we're like, oh my God, everyone's going to die.
Yeah.
So it's nice because science has come a long way from that. So I'm hoping because of that and kind of in the same trail as that, we will just have to continually get vaccines for it, but it's not going to be like a everything's shutting down kind of thing.
Yeah, I got you. Well, I'm pretty darn excited for when our food gets here because I am starving.
Yes, we did order, we ordered gyros from a local Greek place. We figure we'll try them out because we figure if we're going to record, we might as well treat ourselves to a little dinner out.
And support local business, obviously.
Absolutely. And I'm be honest with you, I love small restaurants because I feel like they usually are like the hidden gems. And like, yes, you always have Applebee's and Olive Garden and stuff like that. But like the small businesses, they're usually like the ones that have the best food. Like when we went to El Tapatio, I think that's what it was called with Supriya.
Yeah.
That was delicious. That was my honestly, I wish I could travel back in time and eat that quesadilla again for the first time because it was so good.
It was pretty good. Yeah, definitely. And I just miss the halal trucks in Philly. I used to get them all the time when I was working in the office, and now I went into the office recently, and it was hard to find a halal truck.
Really?
Yeah, I had to walk like 3 to 6 blocks away.
Oh my god, 3 whole blocks.
Okay, it's not that big of a deal, but like there used to be a halal truck like every block because there's so many businesses around that area in Center City, but
next time you go into work, you need to try and find there's a Jamaican food truck. They have oxtail. Oh my gosh, it is delicious.
I don't think it's there anymore.
So I think it's because the Rite Aid that I had my rotations at, that was on like 17th, I think it was, or 16th.
I don't remember.
I think it was on like the halal truck, or not the halal truck, the Jamaican food truck was on either 18th or 20th. Like it wasn't close. So we only ordered from there like maybe once or twice because we had to send a tech out like far to go get it. But it was
I found like 3 halal
delicious.
trucks that switched their menu over to cheesesteaks and stuff because like I guess that's what people want.
People are uncultured.
I don't know. I mean, we'll get into that later on about, being uncultured with food because I was raised on like strictly American food, but I mean, I miss halal so much. And like last time I got it in Philly, like when I finally found the truck, it like wasn't great.
You remember the place we would get it at our old apartment? Like there was like a small chain of
that was really good.
that was so good. And
that was like a halal restaurant. Like they actually had like a storefront. It wasn't a cart, and that was amazing. It was very good.
It was absolutely delicious. And I remember there were times when we were in the apartment and I'd just be like, I could kill for some of that.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess we should kind of transition.
I guess we'll jump into business, I guess.
Yeah, like mainly what we were going to talk about, which I think for today we're going to talk about our dating life.
Yeah,
specifically our shared dating life, not like, past relationships.
Yeah, that's a mess and a half that we don't need to get into.
Yeah, because last episode we left off at, our first time meeting, and we had a few dates, and then after that, things kind of dissipated for like a 6-month period.
I think it was roughly around 6 months. I don't know when we finally did get together. And we did text. So we had our date at Sky Zone and everything. And I'm not saying we texted every day. Like I said before, we were not, I mean, even now, we're still not good texters.
Yeah, but it was so sparse.
But it was like the only reason I say that we texted, like, and it was very like here or there, like we'd Snapchat from time to time. But like I remember I had dinner. It was at Knock Bar for our RA Christmas party, and we were supposed to meet up after that. But the dinner ended up going pretty late, and so like because you're like, oh, like let's hang out or let's meet up, and I said okay, and then you were texting me during dinner, but I didn't have my phone out because it was like RA dinner, and then I texted you afterwards. I was like, hey, are you still around? And you're like, sorry, I made other plans because you weren't responding. And I remember being like, oh, that's a bummer.
I do remember that now. I didn't remember that before you brought it up again. But yeah, thanks for ditching me.
Listen, okay? Okay, so I was a resident assistant at Immaculata, and then when I moved to Jefferson for pharmacy school, I was a resident assistant there as well. And I always had so much fun hanging out with those people. Like, so when we were all at dinner, like, we had our, like, was it our Secret Santa that we did? And we were all just kind of sitting around, like, chatting and having a good time and not actually having to talk about, like, work things. It's kind of like going out with your work friends, but not having to talk about only work things, which was, I don't know, it was fun. It was a good time.
I know
And
you're super close to your fellow RAs because I went to a few of your RA events, and they were nice enough to show up to yours when nobody else did.
okay,
When none of the actual
all right.
residents
So can I tell you that my RA, I will get into this some other time, but my RA experience at Jefferson was very different than my RA experience at Immaculata.
I just think that's like, I don't know, like grad school though. Like grad school students don't want to just go like see a movie or like do whatever little events that you guys are planning just because they have like other lives outside of school.
The things like whenever we would take people to the flower show or movies or something like that, people like take them somewhere where you had to pay to get in. They were a lot more likely to sign up because we'd be like, oh yeah, you pay $5 and then we'll cover the remainder of the ticket. So like you get a super cheap price to go and do all these things. So like we would take people to go see the new Marvel movie or the new Pirates of the Caribbean. And even in the summer, we would get a big group of people to go because that's what people wanted to do. So we would have to limit the spots. But when it's like, oh, we're just going to show a movie or we're going to do this or that, like it's not as exciting if you're not going off campus.
Yeah, I do remember the one movie that you showed, or maybe it was Lena that did it. I forget, but I remember that one guy making comments
Nope.
with the naked girl on the screen.
That was me because that was Friday the 13th. We watched Friday the 13th on a Friday the 13th, and there was like maybe 3 or 4 kids that showed up. One of my other RA friends showed up. But yeah, he just could not keep it together when there was a topless woman on the screen, and
He was loving it, and I was loving that he was loving it. It was so funny. I mean, it was awkward but funny.
he what, you know what I was gonna say, he showed up to a lot of the events.
He did. Those events probably made his experience a lot better at
Yes.
the school. Anyway, we're like way off topic now.
Bringing it back. But no, so like I know that year Claire threw me a surprise birthday party for my birthday at her apartment at Jefferson, and like I like snapped it out and then you snapped something back because I remember the reason I remember this, and the only reason I remember this, is because once we found out we had the same birthday, I like was thinking back to when I Snapchatted you, and it looked like you were at like a party or something like that, or you were out at a bar. And I remember once while you learned we had the same birthday, I was like, I wonder if he was celebrating his birthday when I snapped him that I had like my birthday party.
That's interesting, and I'm glad that I was not invited to your birthday.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
Mom, that would have been so cool. We would have been like, oh my gosh, we have the same birthday.
Y'all, this man is so needy. But it's okay. I'll still think I'll keep him around.
Yeah, okay.
But no, we didn't chat, like actually talk or anything like that up until I guess it was like March or April the following year, and you're like, "Hey, let's go grab some steaks." Like went not steaks, like cheesesteak sandwiches. So we went to Chubby's in Manayunk. He came and picked me up on his motorcycle because he's got to show off.
Obviously.
And we went to Chubby's, which was one of his favorite cheesesteak places, I think. And I do think it's one of mine. I don't think it's better than D'Alessandro's.
This is a big debate, and I'm like on the fence because I've definitely had really, really good cheesesteaks from both places. But I think that those two places are the best steaks in Philadelphia. Everybody thinks that like the tourist thing is to think
Pat's and Geno's.
Yeah, Pat's and Geno's.
Pat's and Geno's. Some people say Jim. Some people say, isn't it like Steve, Prince of Steaks or something like that? That's
Ryan really loves Steve's Prince of Steaks. He gets extra meat, extra cheese, and
some people say that one's really good. The one that's on like South Street, I think it's Jim's. I had a horrible experience with, but I've heard a lot of people say that one's the best. I will put money that Chubby's. I will say Delisandro's. Delisandro's, the one time I did have it was like it was a takeout, and so like I had it after it like cooled off. It wasn't like a fresh steak. But Chubby's I still think is one of the best places I've gotten a cheesesteak in the area.
Chubby's has indoor seating, which is nice. Delisandro's, it does have a bar, but it only fits like 5 people or something, and then they have a little bit of outdoor seating. But like, this place is packed.
Always.
Like, it would be terrible to sit inside of it because you have a huge line of people shoving their way into the place to go buy a cheesesteak. So it's not really a place that you eat in, even though some people do. Chubby's a lot more relaxed. And yeah, it's all around a great experience. But I think both of them have won best cheesesteak in Philadelphia. But that's just like not the tourist thing.
No.
Probably because they're a little outside of like Center City.
Yeah, they're not in the city, so you can't experience everything else. But anyway, we went to Chubby's.
Man, we're really getting sidetracked this time.
We went to Chubby's and we had cheesesteaks, which were really good, and then we rode back to his place in Philly, and we sat and played Monopoly with his 2 friends, Emily and Cyrus. And Jason was sitting there prepping for an interview the next day because I was the thimble when we played Monopoly, and he was very upset that I chose the thimble even though he was not playing.
That's right. Yeah, he said that was his symbol or whatever.
That was his game piece, and he called me Thimble for a while after that.
Wow. Yeah, you have a great memory. I mean, I like those little details. Like, I know this happened, but like the little details about the thimble and stuff, I always,
yeah,
now it comes back to me when you bring it up. But...
And I remember thinking, wow, this is the best way to meet your friends, by throwing me in and making me play Monopoly with them.
Didn't I use that as part of my speech for Cyrus's wedding, though?
That I'm not sure about. That Emily and Cyrus's wedding speech, I remember you went on about their chicken and rice a little long.
Okay, yeah, I'm a big fan of chicken and rice. I mean, that's what I'm getting from the Greek place. But anyway, yeah, I do remember because they were sharing properties and stuff, remember?
Yes, they were sharing properties, and I had this very long internal monologue going that obviously you guys didn't know about, because you thought I was taking the longest time to make a decision, because I was like, do I like play strategically and be like a super dick about it, or do I team up with Chris, or do I just kind of play it low key and not really get into it? So I was going through all of these different scenarios in my head, trying to make them not hate me, and meanwhile they're all just staring at me like, are you gonna make a move or not? Because we gotta keep this thing rolling.
To be fair, your family and you are very competitive when it comes to board games, because like every time you're all together, you always play board games. Not necessarily Monopoly. I don't know how much you guys play Monopoly.
So Zach loves Monopoly, but my mom hates it. So we'll never play the full board game, but I do believe you were there when we played Monopoly Go or Draw or whatever it is, that's the card game.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Oh man, smacking the mic. I think you need to drink some water now.
Listen, okay? No, I'm sorry. I'm just not used to talking.
I don't think my parents ever played a full, like we probably played like 1 or 2 full games of Monopoly, but we have more than one Monopoly set. But I don't think my parents wanted to sit through a full game of Monopoly.
No one ever wants to sit through a full game of Monopoly, which is why whenever like my brothers and I would have friends over, Zach would always be like, let's sit down and play Monopoly. And the only times we would do it, we would only do it like maybe once a year, and that's when he had friends over, and it was just me and Jake that were kind of like along for the ride. But no one ever wants to play a full game of Monopoly because it drags on.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad at Monopoly.
But yeah, we played Monopoly, and I know we didn't finish, but I think like towards the end, Emily and Cyrus just kind of took over, like over half the board and won. Like
Indeed.
I think we just kind of like gave up. We're like, we're done.
I think we were all done playing by the time
Yeah.
the end of the night was there. But yeah, so Cyrus and Emily were getting married soon.
They got married that following July. So we met up and it was either March or April.
Yeah, and
It
then
was still kind of chilly out, I
I
remember.
think after you played the Monopoly game with us, and then like after you were home, right? Like this was, I think you were at home in Maryland because you were going to the beach soon, right?
So we usually go to the beach in July. I think I was still in Philly. So I was in Philly for like May
Because I think I
to.
texted you to ask if you would be my date to their wedding.
You did text me because you waited and talked to Emily and Cyrus afterwards. Because
It was kind of like when I brought you over and played Monopoly, I was more doing that just to introduce you to them. And then, like, yeah, we talked about, bringing you as my date to their wedding.
yeah.
I was best man in their wedding. So, you were the guest of honor with the best man.
I was not the guest of honor. The guest of honor are the bride and groom at the
Oh,
wedding.
well,
However,
they're
but-
hosting, though. Yeah, anyway.
anyway, but yeah, and I was he asked me to be his date to Emily and Cyrus's wedding, which was a lot of fun. And I remember telling my mom that, being like, "Oh yeah, like Chris wants me to be his date for the wedding, so I'll probably be late going down to the beach. Like I'll probably be like a day or two late coming down the beach." She's like, "Okay, that's fine." Now my mom, in her mind, she gets super excited because one of her first dates with my dad, mom was in a wedding. I want to say it was either Kelly or Dottie's wedding, and mom was in it, and dad had to go, and like kind of like that was his first time meeting all of their friends and everything, kind of like how it was for me meeting all of your friends, like Ryan and Jamie and
Barry.
yeah,
there.
that was the first time I met Barry.
I think Barry was there alone, though, right?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Barry was there alone, but that's when I really got to know Jason and JT.
That's right. Jason and JT were there, and JT forgot her ID.
JT forgot her ID.
That
and
was a classic.
That was a huge problem at the wedding. Emily wasn't 21 yet, so they wouldn't let her like even toast champagne at her own wedding.
I was gonna say, to be fair, like this place was so strict with their alcohol policy. Like I've never seen a wedding venue be this strict, but they didn't let Emily, even though she was turning 21 in like a few days, they took her champagne away and swapped it out with like apple cider or something. And somebody at work tried to send them a bottle of champagne, and that got rejected because she wasn't 21, and they knew that because the venue was at a hotel. And they wouldn't serve JT either because she had a picture of her ID and everything, but she forgot it in her home state. So I guess she was visiting her parents and she forgot her ID there.
Because I think she was up visiting her niece.
Yeah, that's right. That was probably when her niece was born. And yeah, that was just there was a few things that were going a little haywire there.
I mean, they lost power. There was a lot going on at that wedding.
Yes, but I mean that made our relationship happen, right? Like, who knows if we didn't have this wedding to go to? Who knows when we would have hung out next?
Yeah,
If we were busy, like if you were busy or I was busy, and one of us reached out and it didn't work out. Who knows how many more tries there would have been before, like, everybody just gives up. So I am very thankful for Emily and Cyrus allowing me to bring you to their wedding, because
it was kind of them.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people these days with weddings they don't allow people to bring plus ones unless you've been dating for a while and stuff. But Cyrus and Emily were super chill. They let me bring you, even though you're kind of like a stranger to them. You only met them once, and we weren't actually officially dating. They let me bring you, and look at what happened.
Yeah.
Now we're married, and we got a little puppy.
We got a little bubba.
And she's adorable.
But yeah, and then after that, I remember We went out a couple times during restaurant week. That following fall, because once I came back to Philly for school, we'd go out on dates and everything. We hit restaurant week a couple times, and I remember we went out to sushi with, well, it was like you, your brother, your aunt, and your uncle, and you're like, oh yeah, like why don't you come by? And so like I remember walking there because I felt like that was the furthest I'd walked in the city in a very long time.
Was Barry alone?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just us four, and then you came along.
Yeah, because you were like, the original plan was it was you, Barry, your aunt, and your uncle. And then, like, at the last minute, you're like, oh, yeah, well, we're going to do this. Do you want to come by? Or, like, do you want to, like, join us? And I was like, yeah, as long as you guys are okay with it, like, sure thing. And then we had dinner. And then afterwards, it was you. I don't know if Barry came, but I know it was you, me, and your uncle. We went to a bar afterwards just to grab a couple beers. And I remember I was up at the bar getting another beer, and you're like, hey, like, I've talked to you about something. I've kind of been calling you my girlfriend for the past like 3 months. Is that okay with you? And I was like, sure. And I got another beer.
So romantic, right? I mean, that's how I pretty much like. I don't know what traditional ways of determining whether you're like officially boyfriend or girlfriend are. Like I know, like I feel like my parents like generation, like once they were like went on like one or two dates, they were kind of considered dating. Like they never asked people to be their girlfriend or anything. Where like I think like now, especially like when we were going through like high school and college and stuff like that, it's more like there's more like consent to it. Like you have to ask somebody to like make sure that that's official. Um, so like I took like a hacked approach to that where I was like, so like I've already been calling you my girlfriend. Is that cool? And I guess like I don't know. I just like yeah, I guess I was calling you my girlfriend, but like I'm just too shy to ask. So like I just went with that route.
Yeah, no. And I also think when you, especially throwing online dating into the mix of everything, you never know, like, who's being exclusive, who's not. So it just kind of, like, throws another layer of complications onto it. So especially in this day and age, you have to be more intentional and, like, vocal about, hey, what are we? Where are we going with this? Because not everyone has the same idea or is in the same mind space as you are. So,
Yeah, and also like we didn't go to the same school, like we didn't see each other like all the time. So there was like a lot of gaps between when we saw each other. So you kind of want to just define
yeah.
what is the situation.
Yeah, so yeah, and I remember uh we were at the bar, you told me that, and then the following month when I had my Friday the 13th event and you came by for the Friday the 13th event, as I was like setting it up, you came up to me and were like, oh yeah, like happy 1 month anniversary.
Did I really?
You did.
I'm so romantic.
Because you said happy 1 month anniversary and I was like, oh, and you're like, yeah, I remember, like, I've marked it down in my phone last month because I've gotten in trouble for not knowing this in the past. And I said, that's cool. We're not celebrating month anniversaries. We'll celebrate years if you get that far.
I have a terrible like relationship past in terms of like that petty stuff, like remembering month anniversaries and crap like that. So that's probably why I said that.
And that's totally fair. And I just remember being like, I don't want to say like rude, but I was very like frank about it and being like, if you get to the year mark, then we'll celebrate the year mark. But we're not doing this month anniversary stuff.
Also, total side note, do you know that I still carry in my wallet the hotel room key from Cyrus and Emily's wedding that has your name on it?
I didn't know that.
It's in my wallet.
Nice. I know we were supposed to turn them in at the end, but they made us like, because they had like a water park area, I guess it was, that we went to, and you had to have the key to get into that to like show that you were part of the hotel. So I knew you held on to it like after that, but I didn't know you still had it.
I still have it.
So romantic.
Yep. Just total romance guy right here.
That's you.
So I guess, yeah, after we started officially dating, um, everything was pretty normal in terms of like normal dating relationship until probably when my dad got hurt. Right.
Do you remember any like dates or anything like that that just like really stood out to you?
Our 1 year stood out to me because that's when we went to Dante and Luigi's for the first time, and that is an excellent Italian restaurant in Philadelphia that I would highly recommend to anybody.
Yes, it's a small like they turned two townhomes into one restaurant, and it's a small Italian place, and it is so good. They make their Caesar dressing in house, they make their tomato sauce in house. It's absolutely delicious.
Their meatballs are awesome. Like, I'm such a basic person when it goes to eating out, but I get their Caesar salad. You have to. Um, Last time we went, which was for our 1 year anniversary
Wedding
of wedding,
anniversary.
yeah, we ordered a bottle of wine. There are affordable bottles of wine, which are nice. Like, I don't typically order wine when we go to places because it's so super overpriced, but like, it was reasonable, and I just went with like classic spaghetti and meatballs. Like the last 3 out of 4 times we went there.
And the only other time you didn't get classic spaghetti and meatballs, it was one of their specials, but it was a meatball, a sausage, and like a piece of pork, I think. I think it was like branzino or something like that. That was all with like the red sauce and the pasta. And that was like one of their specials. And he said that was phenomenal as well.
Anyway, that is one date that totally stuck out to me because we still go there to this day, and we went there for our first wedding anniversary. That restaurant will always have a special place in my heart because
Yeah.
that's where we go and celebrate our best moments.
Yeah, that's kind of our happy celebration restaurant.
What about you?
Um, were there any dates that stood out to us? My favorite ones, I think it was almost every year. So in Philly, they do Restaurant Week, and they do it twice a year. They do it in the fall and they do it in the winter. And our anniversary almost always fell on the first Restaurant Week. So we'd go to Fogo, we'd go to Chima, we'd like really treat ourselves at the nicer restaurants because it's Restaurant Week. It's going to be a lot less expensive because they have this prefixed menu that you can get for way cheaper than whatever their normal prices are.
When Jamie's saying treat yourself, it's I think 25 or 35 a person. So
Yeah, depending on the night of week or if you go for lunch or dinner, it's very affordable.
yeah, it usually comes out to be like a $70 meal, which is pretty good for how fancy these restaurants are in Center City. I mean, you can't beat that price.
And we would always do that, and then the winter time would always fall right around our birthday, so we would do that for our birthday as well. And I always loved doing that because it was affordable, but it was also like a treat yourself. So I felt like we could go and try out these nicer restaurants and everything, and still not like break the bank because being in school still, I didn't really have a big income. I would only work maybe 1 or 2 days a week. And then I would just try and pick up shifts here or there to help kind of improve the income. But I did not really have anything coming in.
Yeah, I guess I was working full time, right? So I had like a full salary.
Yeah, because we started dating right when you were like towards the end of school going into like full time work. Because at Emily and Cyrus's wedding, he had to like take time off of work for
That's
their
right.
honeymoon. It wasn't like oh yeah, it's summer between classes, we can go on our honeymoon.
That's
So
right.
yeah, you were already working.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that, and I do remember I think it was our first New Year's Eve together. And the reason I remember this is because I've always hated like New Year's, like for some reason big holidays always just made me super bummed out. Like I hated New Year's, like Christmas, if I wasn't around my family, I was super like bummed out.
I think anybody would be bummed out if they're not around their family in the
Yeah,
holidays.
but like even just like being around my family, like for New Year's, it was never like I would always have these like times where I would just get super down. And it's like, I don't want to say it's like a seasonal depression thing or whatever,
Do you
but
think
like,
you were lonely?
yeah, absolutely. And I always felt so alone, even though like we would be at parties or we'd have people over. I always just felt so alone. And I remember the first time we had New Year's, and it was
Is that
at Dan
Danny and JP's
at
apartment?
Danny and JP's apartment, and that's when I got to like, I think that was not the first time I met them, but it was like earlier on, and same with Ryan and Jamie. Like I didn't like really know them that well just yet.
That is by far the favorite video of us that I have on my phone.
And
Is
that
the countdown to New Year's. It is just like my favorite video. It
and
plays on our picture frame all the time, and every time I see it, it just reminds me of those times, and it was great.
and I distinctly remember afterwards being like, I don't feel alone. I'm not sad or bummed or scared. Like I remember being like, wow, like this is fun. So that is the one of the ones that stands out most to me, because it was good to like get to know like more of your friends and everything, but I just didn't, I wasn't sad.
That was a good party too. I
It
mean,
was such a good
Danny and
party.
JP host a party. I remember. I think Jamie exploded the champagne bottle in this apartment
Oh yes,
in Center City,
absolutely.
like just full out popped, shook, and sprayed a champagne bottle in an apartment. I can't believe that even happened, but it was one of the best things I've ever witnessed in a Center City apartment in my life.
And Danny and JP, well, I think it was Danny's family growing up. New Year's was a huge thing for them. And so she handed out bags or cups or whatever of confetti. And there were like 15, 20 people in this apartment.
I
And
think they were cleaning confetti until they moved out. They were
until
finding
I
confetti.
think when they moved out and they moved all their big furniture out, they still found confetti. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the new people who moved in still found confetti. But they were cleaning up confetti for forever, and I remember thinking, this is nuts. And Danny's like, we love doing this is what we've always done growing up, like this is our tradition. So I was like, listen, who am I to say no to throwing confetti everywhere? I'm just glad I don't gotta clean it up.
It was amazing. It was the best New Year's party I've probably been to, just because of, it was our first New Year's together, and then it was also just so reckless, the things that were happening, like
It
the
was
champagne in the apartment, the confetti all over the place. It was an awesome time.
it was an absolute blast. But yeah, I think that's one of my more memorable dates that we had.
Yeah, but
But
we also hit some rough times throughout our relationship. You can't. I think that you can't forget about those things, because it really helped grow the relationship. It helps show where your priorities are. Like the biggest example that I can think of, well, there's really two. One is when my dad hurt himself. That kind of changed the dynamic of our relationship a little bit. Um, so my brother bought a house, and we were putting a new roof on his garage, and me and my mom at the time left after a work day at his house, and we were going down to Philly to clean out my old apartment.
yeah.
Barry and I used to live together, and we needed to do some final cleaning before turning over the keys to our apartment. So my mom was willing to help me with that, while my brother and my dad and my uncle were finishing up working at his house.
Your uncle was there?
Uncle Jim, Barb's husband,
I didn't know that.
was there. Yeah, so yeah. Anyway, I guess they were trying to take down or put up one more board, and my dad slipped on the ladder and ended up falling on the ground and destroying his wrist and his right arm. But along with that, also the board had a nail in it, and it hit Jim in the face and actually put a scratch down his face. He was very lucky it didn't hit him in the eye. But yeah, this was a total disaster. I mean, I guess Barry called me when I was on the way to Philly and told me that, my dad was in the hospital and, he was getting his arm looked at. And I give a lot of credit to my mom like, she did not have me turn around the car right away, but, she was literally like, let's get into the apartment, literally throw out the trash, and that's it. Like, let's just leave. So that's what we did. And, without getting into all the details, I had to move back home
I think you were planning on moving back home and staying at home, weren't you?
for a
At
little
least
bit.
for a little bit. No, I mean, not to the extent that you did, but
For a little bit, like, Barry bought a house, so I didn't really have anybody to live with. We were moving out of our current apartment, so I guess my plan was to move home, but I definitely stayed at home longer than I thought I was going to.
and I mean that was very helpful for your family just because everything that happened with your dad just seemed to compound on everything. He had to wait to see what was going on with his arm because the swelling was so bad, and then everything just kind of compounded and one issue led to another issue and
Yeah,
that caused
and
another issue. And so I mean, I was taking the train out to visit you in Hatfield because
yeah, my dad went through the works. I mean, he had a destroyed arm where he had to have some reconstruction done in his arm and a lot of physical therapy with that. But because he couldn't sleep in his bed with his broken arm, he eventually got a blood clot in his leg from sitting down so much, which that was the worst out of anything.
and I mean that, and plus he usually is up and moving just for work regularly, so having to be so stationary because you can't do anything with your arm, that and
He's a very active person. I mean, for work, he works a blue collar job. He does a lot of work around the house. He's always up and moving. So this was just emotionally damaging too. Like, just not being able to do anything was terrible. Um, but yeah, and then after the blood clot finally cleared up, he had some other medication issues and stuff that led to other symptoms and stuff that eventually got figured out. But I mean, by the time this was all over, it was over a year, I think, because it took him about a year from the time that he fell until he was able to go back to work. And I still lived at my parents' house for that long. But like that whole time, there was a lot of times where I missed out on seeing Jamie, or I wasn't communicating as often because I was helping my dad do PT things, and it just really showed a lot of commitment from Jamie's end to deal with lack of communication, lack of being able to see me, just because my family is everything, so I'm going to do whatever I can to help make that better.
yeah, and it was definitely difficult just because in addition to like having to go back and forth, if he did want to come and see me, it was like, okay, is he gonna come down to Philly and stay over? Is there anything he has to be home for the next morning to make sure he's there to help out his parents? And your grandparents too, because your dad did a lot for your grandparents who are in their 90s, and when he isn't as able to do things, especially so this event happened around, I think it was September, right around September when the fall happened and that whole thing happened. So in addition to helping your parents with keeping the grass cut and with the holidays coming up, making sure all the decorations are out, you had to do the same thing for your grandparents who live down the street because they're not able to get up on ladders and hang all of their Christmas lights and get all the stuff up and down from the basement. So that was...
Yeah, I kind of always did that stuff. I always put up my grandparents' decorations and stuff, but there was a lot of things that, like, you don't realize that your parents do until you have to start taking over that stuff. I mean, at that time, I wasn't a homeowner. I didn't realize you got to cut the grass like twice a week. And, during the winter time, my dad has a truck and a plow, and he would plow out multiple properties, including like my grandparents and his property. and run the snowblower all the way up the block so that everybody's sidewalks were cleared. So like I had to learn how to use his plow truck, and I think we just said screw it on the sidewalks because, you know, some other people can go out there and shovel. But yeah, it was definitely a big learning experience. There's also some benefits that came out of it though. Um, like, you know, because I lived at home for so long, I was working a full-time job, full-time salary, and not paying for rent or anything. So I was able to save up a lot of money. I paid off my student loans pretty quickly. I bought like my car in cash, and then also I saved up a decent amount to where eventually, you know, Jamie and I were looking for a house, and I had enough money to put a down payment on a house.
Which was very, very helpful. And I mean, just because I was still, you know, was paying off student loans and everything, and I couldn't really contribute to the whole house down payment and everything. So it was definitely a saving grace that he was able to do that when we were able to find our house, and that was a whole adventure in itself. But
yeah, especially with the housing market. I mean, we bought our house in the COVID times as well. Anybody who has tried or is looking to buy a house in COVID times, you understand the struggle that it's a fast market right now. It's a seller's market. You have to have offers in within hours of the house being listed. So, you know, having the money to have a down payment and be pre-approved and everything was just amazing. It definitely helped out.
it was definitely helpful. But yeah, it was very nice from my end to see Chris put his family first, because I know family is always huge for me. All of our holidays, we were always with family. My grandparents, whenever we had like birthday dinners or anything, my grandparents were always invited. Like, my grandparents lived 20 minutes down the road, and being able to see them and just pop by and say hi, that was always huge for me growing up. And I always wanted my future family to be very family oriented. So seeing that Chris had those same values was also very comforting to me. To kind of, it really showed what kind of a person he was in time of crisis, and that was something that I admired and respected.
Yeah, so moving on to like, you know, the next 2 years from that. I mean, I think total we dated for 3 years, right?
I think honestly it all blends together.
Yeah, it starts to blend together, but you know, like 2 years later, we have our own apartment together, and we have a little doggo.
Our little Bubba.
And you know, things from that point on were pretty regular. You know, we had a hiccup with lava at one point, which we could get into on a
We did.
different podcast or whatever. But you know, everything was pretty normal up until the point where, you know, I knew that I was going to marry her.
When did you know?
When did I know? Oh man, this goes way back to one of the Christmas parties.
Oh my gosh, are you talking about the Christmas party where you were talking to Mark and I was talking to Megan?
I was talking to Megan.
You were talking to Megan.
I was talking to Megan about it.
I remember I talked to Megan about it.
Anyway, so yeah, it was just, you know, it was a random Christmas party that we went to, and like, I just, you know, I realized that I really love her, and I just knew that it was going to be a forever type of deal.
Now, mind you, at this point, he had not said "I love you" to me.
I know, yeah, so I did not say I love you to her, and I did either that night or... Did I say it that night?
It was that night, but I said it first.
Dang. Anyway, it was that night, but yeah, so I guess we said our first I love yous that night. But that was probably midway through our relationship.
Yeah.
And then I decided that I was going to propose. And just me being a total romantic guy, you know, I got the ring. I was all ready. And I just couldn't wait. Once I got that ring in my hand, first of all, Jamie cleans a lot around the apartment, and I was hiding my ring in my desk which I worked at the time because it was
COVID.
COVID, beginning of COVID, and I was working from home, full time remote. And I knew that she wouldn't go in there, but I wasn't like 100% certain that she wouldn't go in there. So once I had the ring in hand, and also I just wanted to get it over, like I wanted to propose, I wanted to be engaged. So it was pretty much like a week after I got the ring. I was just like, all right, I know a great like lake nearby. It's very pretty there. And I was thinking, like, what if we do like a little picnic, and then I'll pop the question. Well, I I definitely made plans to have the picnic, which the picnic consisted of some Wawa Sizzlies.
It consisted of some Wawa Sizzlies on a picnic bench in. It wasn't raining, but it was definitely like misting, spritzing, sprinkling.
It was drizzling, but one of the reasons why I picked that time was there was a few reasons. So one, we just went to a wedding on that Friday, and now it was Saturday, and our dog was down in Maryland with Jamie's parents, and my parents live very close to where we were having the picnic at. So, like, I thought it would be really nice for after I propose, and assuming she said yes, we could do kind of a press tour, with the parents. Where we would go to my parents' house and possibly my grandparents' house because they live so close. And then we could go see Jamie's parents after, to go pick up the dog, and they can see the ring and everything. Unfortunately, the weather just was not what I was hoping for. And it really was a forecast of what our wedding turned out to be, which was rain.
Yes. And I'm not going to lie, when you were still set on having that picnic. So let's take it back. He said, hey, let's have it, maybe like, let's go have like a picnic breakfast. I was like, that's odd, but sure, whatever. And we looked at the forecast the day before and it said rain, but it wasn't going to start until noon. All right, that's fine. No biggie. Well, we woke up and it was still raining, or not still raining, but it had already started. And he was still saying, let's go have this picnic. And I was like, really? In the rain? You think we should have a picnic? So I had a little bit of an inkling, just because it was kind of out of character. It was not, obviously not the most conducive for a picnic, having the rain and everything. I had taken a blanket that we could like sit on because I didn't know if there would be picnic benches. I ended up just being wrapped up in that blanket.
Yep.
The entire time.
Do you remember what I was asking you before I popped the question?
Yes, I do, because it was a running joke for us. So and it's not like I was pressuring him for a proposal or anything. But like we're still are at the age where a lot of his friends and my friends were getting engaged and getting married, and I would be like, oh, like, I think for my wedding, I want to do X, Y, and Z. And he's like, well, you don't have a ring yet, so. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, the joke was, the running joke was, well, you don't have a ring yet.
And so he was like, after we were at that wedding that previous night, he said, oh, when you have your wedding, do you want to do something? I don't even remember if it was like, would you want to have it in Maryland?
I think I said, would you want to have it in PA or Maryland? And I knew exactly what you were going to respond with.
Because I said, oh, I'd like to have it in Maryland, but I don't have a ring yet, so. And with that,
Jamie shoves the sizzly in her mouth.
Listen, I was hungry. It was breakfast time.
Right as I go down to one knee with the shiny old ring, and she said yes, sizzly in mouth.
I did. I couldn't even say yes. I was just like nodding my head because I still had a mouthful of my breakfast sandwich, and his hands were shaking so bad he could not actually put the ring on.
I was pretty nervous, even though I would say, like, I knew 99% that she was going to say yes, but I don't know how to explain it. As a guy, like, proposing, you're still nervous. It's a huge commitment. So yeah, it's definitely something that gets your nerves moving a little bit.
Yeah.
But that officially concluded our dating relationship.
Yeah,
And we were engaged from that point on.
we were. And it was magical. It was honestly the most us type of proposal, just because we try to be cute and we try to be romantic, but things always happen.
But it ends with rain and sizzlies shoved in our mouth. And
Listen, okay, there's always a hiccup. On our wedding, it rained. On the night we tried to celebrate our first anniversary, you got locked in the bathroom that didn't
And it
have a
rained,
lock in
right?
it. I think it rained during the day.
that's why we
yeah.
missed our train. Anyway,
Yeah, like it's just how we are. There's always something that goes wrong, and we just kind of roll with it. And it was a very us proposal, and it very much kind of set the tone for the remainder of our relationship. Still to this day, as we go, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
yeah. So I think we're gonna wrap it up. This definitely. It was rolling until the dang delivery guy rung the doorbell and got the dog all upset.
Yes.
Which I'm hoping I cut that out by now. But other than that, pretty smooth.
Yeah, it was good. I just like reminiscing about this stuff.
Yeah, it's
So.
a lot of fun, and like it helps fill in some detail that might be fuzzy and stuff.
Yeah,
like, in
and-
my mind.
Yeah, and I remember different things, so that you don't, and then you remember different things that I don't. So, yeah. All right, now we're gonna go try these gyros and see how they are. First time we're trying this place.
Yeah, pretty
so
pumped.
We'll keep you posted.
All right, see ya.
See ya.